Hello, my fellow comic book collectors. It's Alan, the Comic Collector Geek, and this is the Wednesday video where I answer your questions. Every Wednesday I do this where I, put a shout out to you to ask me questions, and I will answer them the following week. So this week we got a lot of good questions, and I'm just going to go right into it. The first question comes from Kay Munin, who asked, after going through my collection, I noticed that I had 0 Silver Surfer comics. Are there any issues you would recommend? I'd recommend the 1968 series, which is the first series of Silver Surfer. Also, if you don't already have, get FF or Fantastic Four number 48 and 49 and 50. Those 3 books, kind of major books for Silver Surfer. But in terms of just Silver Surfer titled books, get the 1968 series, the first 4 issues if you can. Those 4 issues are kind of major keys. The first issue 1, which I actually have, but I searched through my whole entire long boxes. I have no idea where it is. Well, I have a slabbed copy of it. I've been looking, I couldn't find it. But that book has the first appearance of Shalabal, and she's kind of a major character for Silver Surfer because she's the love interest for Silver Surfer and kind of the motivator for a lot of the actions that he takes. So definitely a key book. Silver Surfer 1. Silver Surfer 2, I don't actually own, that has the first appearance of Badoon. And Silver Surfer 3 is a major key because it has the first appearance of Mephisto. And Mephisto is kind of one of those characters that a lot of people have been speculating on because they thought, oh, he's going to appear in the WandaVision show. He's going to appear in this or that. And it's kind of almost a running joke with collectors because it seems like he's always going to appear and then he never appears. But Mephisto is supposedly going to be played by Sacha Baron Cohen, and he's going to be making an appearance very soon. So definitely this book has a lot of potential. Right now it's a little bit soft in terms of the price, so it may be a good time to buy. Now the next big book in that 1, 2, 3, 4 is number 4, and this is just a classic cover. There's nothing really key or major about this book except for the classic cover, but it's because it has such a great cover. It's actually one of the more expensive issues in the run. This has been homaged many times. It's just one that people who love Silver Surfer love this cover. Just a really great Thor and Silver Surfer cover. So yeah, so that's Silver Surfer number 4. Another one that's kind of interesting is Silver Surfer number 10. This is actually the last 25-cent issue, but it also has an appearance of Frankenstein. So kind of an interesting one. I'm not sure if it's the first Frankenstein, but definitely a key book for that, for being an early Silver Surfer. So Silver Surfer number 7. And those are the ones that I'd recommend. There are a few later that in other series, like there's like the Infinity Gauntlets quest that, or series that happens within the Silver Surfer series. So I think that's in Silver Surfer, the 2nd series, I believe. So those are ones to get as well with Thanos. So definitely there's a few issues in there that would be keys. But most of them are fairly inexpensive, actually. Silver Surfer is not as pricey as some other books are. So definitely, you can definitely go out and find a lot of the key issues for fairly affordable prices. Next question comes from Matthew LeBlond, who wrote, as a new subscriber to the channel, I really enjoy these Q&As. I learned a lot about comic book collecting, which I'm actually only starting to dig into. My first contact with comics was as a kid was through the mini comics that were introduced in the Masters of the Universe figures. My question is, do you collect mini comics? If so, what would be the best way to store and display them? Are there any bags and boards to fit them? Well, I couldn't find any bags or boards to fit the ones I had, and I'll show you what I have. I have two Masters of the Universe ones, surprisingly so. So the first one I have is this one, which is in a glad bag. It's like a little one of those sandwich bags. And I couldn't really find anything for these. I mean, you could put it in just a regular bag and board, but I don't know. This is all I could find. So I know it's really lame. But this is Masters of the Universe, the first free mini comic. And it's also considered to be the first appearance of Masters of the Universe. So kind of a cool book. And yeah, just a great little mini comic. I can show you the back too. I actually just put them in, I have a slab box that has a little bit of space, and I throw it into that slab box. So it's in it's in one of my random slab boxes. And here's another way I tried storing it. Actually, I bought it, and that's how it was stored. This is another Masters of the Universe one. And this is actually a key book because it's the very first published artwork by Bruce Timm. And you can see his signature right there, Bruce Timm. And so this is his first published artwork, which is an interesting one because you wouldn't necessarily associate Bruce Timm with Masters of the Universe, but that's where he made his first published art appearance. So Masters of the Universe. And this is the Grizzler, the Legend Comes Alive. So Grizzler, the Legend Comes Alive. So those are the two mini comics that I have. I generally go after things that are key. I'm a bit of a key collector. So those are the two that I have. Now there was even cooler mini comics that I had as a kid. Back in the day, they actually would put mini comics into bubblegum machines, and they were like about this big, and you could kind of read them, and they were really tiny. I did have a small collection of those when I was a kid. I have no idea what happened to them, so I haven't seen them since I was a kid. But I do like those, and I have a bit of a soft spot for those ones, even though I have none of those in my collection currently. They'd probably be back in my parents' house in Nova Scotia. So those are some of the, but I'm sorry about the bags and boards. I'm not really sure. I just used a glad bag. That's pretty sad, I know. Next question comes from Pentis Hamad. And he asked, we've been chatting about rusty staples in the past. Given that, I'd ask, have you ever gone back to a book you bought 10 years ago to see if rust migration did indeed occur? My intention is that if a rusty staple is removed from the humid condition, it was in it might halt the migration. So my belief is that generally it's not just the moisture. So the moisture created the initial problem, but I think once the seal like that protects, that's on the outer layer of the staple has been weakened or compromised, that what happens is it's not the moisture that's the problem anymore. It's more the air exposure. So as long as it doesn't get air exposure at that point, then it would be it wouldn't spread, I guess. But I really don't know. I haven't gone through and examined books that I bought from 10 years ago, so I don't really know 100%. That's more of a question you could ask somebody like Jerry the Jitterbug. He's a really good guy, and he has dealt with a lot of restoration and conservation, and might be more familiar with that kind of question about rusted staples and how they get worse over time, or how they actually spread into the paper itself, in terms of the damage that is caused. But I don't know. I plead ignorance, but I did try it. I did look up as much as I could find about it, but I really couldn't find much information about it. But some of the restorer people might have more knowledge on that. Next question comes from Tim Ryerson. Here's a question for a future video. I want to maximize the bids on a comic I want to sell at an auction. Is it better to go with an auction house that extends bidding if a bid is placed at the end, anti-sniping, or one where sniping is allowed? Heritage, Comic Collect, Golden fall into the former. eBay and Comic Link fall into the latter category. I'm just curious what you think. I'm trying to determine which auction house I want to sell a large portion of my collection. Personally, I would go for an auction house where sniping is not allowed. The problem with a lot of, like, when you buy stuff on eBay, you can really do well on an auction when you're buying, because you can snipe the book. Often what'll happen is you'll see the price. I've seen books, they're $100 at the at the last 5 seconds of the auction, and then you'll see the price just jump maybe up to even $1,000 is the most I've seen, where it just like went boom right up. But the book might have been worth $1,500. So a lot of the time, a lot of the buyers kind of know that the price will jump, and they will put their bid at the last second. So that is good for the buyer, because they will generally like fight it out at the last 5 seconds. But generally, what ends up happening is there's not enough time for them to fight it out fully. Whereas if you look at a heritage auctions, you'll see that kind of jump as well at the last second, when it looks like the book has been sold on auction, and then you'll see them kind of throwing in more bids, because they still want the book, even though they somebody's tried to put a casual bid above them. So having that extra level of time, or the little additional time, does make a difference when the final price comes in. And generally what will end up happening is those auction houses that allow for that additional time get the bigger price, obviously. Now, with that being said, I wouldn't actually worry about that as an issue. Like, that's a smaller issue than a bigger issue is the type of book. For example, if you're selling lower end books, eBay is the place to go. eBay is as a seller, I would sell like my lower end books on eBay. You're going to get the right type of audience. You're going to get people that will bid things up, and generally you'll get a pretty fair market price for your books that are under $200 or under $300 level. Whereas Heritage or Comic Connect or Comic Link will be more places where you can find the more rare or older books, and those are places where you want to bring those types of books to those auctions. Golden is the same way. I'm not a big fan of Golden, just because I think it really hasn't established itself as a comic seller, even though they've had big books on them. I just don't think that they're too associated to trading cards and other things. Yeah, but Heritage definitely, Comic Connect and Comic Link definitely are places where I would take a more expensive book, or Golden Age book, or a high-end Silver Age book. More modern stuff I wouldn't bother with with Heritage, for example. They just don't perform that well compared to places like eBay. Another option is also My Comic Shop. They have auctions, and their auctions do reasonably well, especially with the modern stuff. So definitely there are choices, and it's more based on not the sniping. That's not the real big problem. It's really finding the right location for who's going to get the right audience for your book. So definitely think about that more than worrying about the sniping too much. Okay, Mr. E, the low-grade king, asked, my question for next Wednesday: would you rather buy a 0.5 that's complete with brittle pages, or a 0.5 that's missing the centerfold with white pages? Okay, so I know this sounds weird, but I really like the idea of a complete comic. So I know that the brittle pages could be like it just disintegrate over time, but generally they don't disintegrate that fast, and brittle pages often doesn't really mean brittle pages. There are times when it does, but for the most part, brittle pages can just be that little corner has fallen off a page and the whole book is labeled brittle pages, and it's really not always accurate to say that the whole comic is brittle. So I generally would prefer a complete book with brittle pages than a incomplete book with white pages. That's a personal preference. Probably, you'd probably do better actually in terms of value with the one with the white pages. So a 0.5 with white pages would probably do better. But it's a personal preference, and I'm sort of weird. I just like the idea of the book being complete. So that's just a personal preference. Cha5 wrote, what that information on crime comics in Canada is interesting. So I'm guessing that would cover modern comics such as Dave Lapham, Stray Bullets. I don't know how to pronounce his name. Lapham's. And Stray Bullets and Dave Azzarello's 100 Bullets. Now, when I said crime comics, it doesn't have to be that exact. What they really meant is any comic that has crime in it. So, for example, Amazing Spider-Man would be a crime comic in terms of the law. Any superhero comic would fit into that crime category. When they made the law in Canada, this was 1949, superhero comics were not as big as they are today. Like, the majority of comics were not superhero comics back then. The majority would have been crime comics, romance comics, a whole bunch of other genres, and mixed into that would be superhero comics. So when they created the law, they weren't really going after superhero comics per se. They were really just going after the crime comics, but indirectly they hit the superhero comics. That's why it's kind of was a bogus law for the most part, and nobody really paid attention to it. It supposedly was repealed in 2018 under Trudeau, amazingly. He actually did something correctly for once. Not a big fan of Trudeau. The law was basically changed slightly so that it became more about obscenity than about crime comics. So that's answer your question there. The last question comes from Black Box Silver and Bronze, who asked, can you show all the first appearances of the snake-themed Marvel villains, such as the team appearances of Serpent Society? Okay, so I'm going to show some books here. I have two. Actually, I don't really have that many of these Serpent characters. So the first one is, this is the first appearance of the Serpent Society. This is Captain America 310, which is the first appearance of the Serpent Society. So, kind of a cool cover. We've got this little snake girl. And this is kind of a key book for the Serpent Society. So it also has the first appearance of Cobra in it as well. So so it's the first appearance of the Serpent Society and the first appearance of Cobra. The next character would be in this book, which is Luke Cage, Hero for Hire. which is also the first appearance of Luke Cage, but it's the first appearance of Diamondback. So kind of a key book. And there's a bunch of other ones. So I'm going to I'll read to you the character and where they made their first appearance. So Bushmaster, which is one of these Serpent ones, made his first appearance in Iron Fist number 15. Eel made his first appearance in Strange Tales 112. Viper made his appearance in Captain America 157. Marvel 2-in-1 had the first appearances of Marvel 2-in-1 number 64, I should say, had the first appearances of Black Mamba and Anaconda, and also the Death Adder made first appearance in that book. Now, the first appearances of Rock Python, Coach Whip, Black Battlestar, and Boomslang, and Battlestar and Boomslang are kind of cameos, were in Captain America 341. And then in 342, Battlestar makes his full first appearance. In Captain America 337, you get the first appearances of Puff Adler, Copperhead, Fel de Lance. And in Amazing Spider-Man 22, you get the first appearance of Princess Python. And who else was there? I think those are all the ones that I could find. So yeah, so those are some of the there's just so many of these snaky characters. It's interesting. And there's actually like multiple team appearances, like where they had new teams and new variations of the teams. So it was a bit of an interesting one to search up. But if you get the following books, so Captain America 310, Iron Fist 15, Marvel 2-in-1 64, Amazing Spider-Man 22, Captain America 341 and 342, and 337, and Strange Tales 112, and Captain America 157, you actually have pretty much most of the Serpent Society and these snaky characters from Marvel. So happy hunting. Find all those books. So I actually have most of those in my shopping cart now, just because, hey, why not? Most of them are pretty inexpensive. They go for anywhere from $5 for certain keys to all the way up to $100. The ASM 22 being one of the more expensive ones, and Luke Cage Hero for Hire is obviously a more expensive book as well. So those are the Serpent Society. I hope you enjoyed those bits of information, and thanks again for watching it. If you want to have your question answered for next week, all you have to do is ask me. Put it in the comments below, and I will do my best to answer your question. And I want to say thank you for everyone for watching, but you have to put in your question soon, because I'm gonna try to record this by Friday. So if you want to have your question answered, it has to be in before Friday, and then I'll post it next Wednesday. So again, thanks for watching. Bye for now.